All right, fellas, what's going on? Denonu here, the man with the biggest and the most blackest privilege on YouTube. And we're back with the 𝐤𝐤𝐤𝐞 podcast, the one-man podcast where I just talk about things that interest me and give my opinions on whatever news that comes out during the week. Sorry I don't have a better intro, but that's gonna work until I think of one. So this one's gonna be a little bit short. I'm about 2 or 3 days late with this, but I got black privilege, so sue me. We're always late to something. But we're gonna play some Yakuza here, and I'm doing it live, like the one white newscaster guy on YouTube. And we're gonna be talking about 3 or 4 different things, mainly 3 things. Nothing really, groundbreaking. No news has really came out this week. Nothing really fancy. No in-depth topics to really talk about. But I will say this: you had Phil Spencer come out and talk about story game content, and getting my butt whipped. Okay, it's my first Yakuza game that I'm playing through, so gotta get used to the controls. But anyway, Phil Spencer came out and he pretty much said that story-driven games are not lucrative, as they used to be. And he was talking about how, that they have to try to find a service, that can somehow facilitate games and stuff like that, story-driven content, since the more money that comes out of a game, for the most part. Really, I gotta fight old people? But he said the majority of the games that make money are games like multiplayer games, and I think he called them service-based games. And I'm guessing that's games with microtransactions, multiplayer games, some games with some kind of some kind of feature where you can put money into it, aka supply packs from probably EA, or the battle packs from Battlefield, things like that, things that make ongoing money for your game. And since multiplayer games are what the mass majority plays, that's what makes the most money as far as that. But I think I'm gonna have to disagree with what he was saying a little bit. It's not that I guess they make more money, that's true, and if you look at the numbers don't lie. But I'm not gonna sit here, as somebody who's been playing games since, '87. It's not that story-driven content isn't as interesting or isn't as profound as it used to be. That's definitely not the case. It's just the fact that I think the video game industry is just like how the movie industry is, how the TV industry is. It's hit a point where they have to get creative. Like, I don't think it's not the games aren't selling, and it's not the fact that that they don't make money. It's just the fact that, yeah, if you have a service-based game like he's talking about, yeah, that's gonna make more money in the long run because you always give people bullshit to dump money into. Whereas a story-driven game, it's primarily about the story. So once you play and beat the story, unless you're the kind of person to collect achievements or to 100% complete a game, unless you're one of those kind of people. Let me see what this guy wants. Apparently this guy behind me wants me to whip his ass. But unless you're one of those kind of people to, play the game multiple playthroughs, things like that, I mean, obviously you're only going to get that one $60 payment out of it. But that's still $60. The game could still sell millions and millions of copies. I guess what he's saying is not wrong technically, but I would truly hate for the industry to just jump right into, let's say, either multiplayer games or, let's say, a serial-based type service. Let's say, like, if how you have certain episodic-based games like Telltale, things like that. I would hate if every story-based game was driven like that, because I'm somebody, don't get me wrong, I like those kind of games. They're good for what they are, but I'm sorry, I love a well in-depth story. And I don't want to feel like I'm paying $60 every two or 3 months to continue a story. I hate that bullshit. You know, just because I don't feel like I'm getting my money's worth. You know, I mean, I don't mind paying the initial price. And why is everybody giving me tissues? Like, what the fuck? Seriously. But, you know, I would hate if every story-based game was like that and then we just had multiplayer. Because that takes everything else out of story-based driven games. Like, to me, story-based driven games, certain ones, are like art. They're expression. It's, you have a game developer's idea or vision of a game and they put it out and you play it. And yeah, the majority of gamers, let's say if you don't gel with that idea, then guess what? You're not going to buy it. It's just like any other movie. Like a movie company, you know, can put out a movie and not everybody, you know, goes to see that movie, even though everything that they're saying should, you know, get people to go see it. Prime example, Green Lantern. You know, they put out that movie, and the one with Ryan Reynolds, and hold on, oh, better go unprepared. Nah, I'm good. I'm a beast. But you know, they lost money with that. Not everything is gonna make the money you want it to. And as a company, they should know that going into it. I mean, if you want to sell more copies of story-based driven games, if you want to push that, then I'm sorry. You're in the wrong medium. Get creative. Make a better product. Just like anybody else who sells something to the masses of the world, if you want to get something, you know, done right, you want to sell millions of stuff, you either got to do 2 things. Make a better product than somebody else, aka do what Call of Duty did. Steal somebody else's idea, put your spin on it, resell it, make it better than, you know, the first guy to put it out. Or 2, make something that's creative and innovative, something that nobody never thought of before, like toilet paper. Or something that everybody does in their day-to-day life to make their life better. Like, we're not going to go back to a point and where people, you know, stop using toilet paper. We may change it to something else. But again, prime example of what I was just talking about. It's going to get to a point where somebody's going to invent something that's better than toilet paper. Maybe they make something that, you know, you don't have to physically wipe your ass with your hand. Maybe they might pull out the 3 seashell idea from Demolition Man. Maybe you hit the 3 seashells and let's say sonic waves come out and it just wipes the shit from your ass without you even having to reach down there. You know, again, stealing somebody else's idea, putting your spin on it, making it better, like I said. And the gaming industry is no different. I mean, if you want to create or sell more story-driven content, make a better product. What I've been seeing in the past few years, and maybe it's just me who thinks like this, I am by no means a super in-depth marketing guy. I'm not going to be the guy on YouTube that's going to calculate all the options and all of that shit to clarify my facts. This is just my opinions from what I've been seeing in the industry over, you know, because this is my medium. This is what I'm into. And what I see is that game development, the cost is getting higher and the creativity or the, what do you want to call it? Let me switch styles here. Give me a sec, guys. Go to my rush style, go to whoop ass. Maybe if I can actually land a punch. And, but the creativity is going down. Like, games are costing more to make, but it doesn't seem like the effort to make the game as the best as it could be is there. And the prime example what that is, I don't know, it's not every game, but it seems to me that the creativity, the drive, the je ne sais quoi of a good game is being downgraded to either push the game out quicker or to feed into marketing or to, you know, not make the game as good. And it's one of those things where it's like, I can't put a specific reason onto it, but it's just, it feels like lazy development. Like if you go in and make something, I mean, you either have to do one of 2 things. You either have to do what you got to do to make the game as best as you could be. That's what I think they should do. Or if, how about this? If the game is costing too much, downgrade the game. You don't got to make the graphics as good as they could be, and focus on making your story or whatever the game is about to be as polished as you possibly could be. I mean, it's not, games aren't really the problem. It's the mentality behind the people who make them. And what I would say is this, it's like, because like I said, it's not everybody. Like, most AAA single player syndicated games, they get timetables, they gotta rush through, they gotta push the game out early. Prime example, Mass Effect Andromeda. It has a good premise, but shitty, well, not shitty, but I guess terribly average. Shitty quality control, let me say that. And flip it around on its head, another game, Witcher 3. Great game. It's not a super in-depth AAA game because it's made by an independent studio. However, they made a badass game. It was graphically decent. It did a couple things innovative for its time with like the NVIDIA hair effects and things like that. But at the end of the day, you still had a great open world game, in-depth story, tons of side quests. I'm not going to say the game was perfect, but in my eyes, I mean, the game was probably as perfect as it could be, you know, for a game that came out. A lot of people may develop a game, and in order to, let's say, try to make the game as perfect as it could be, they push the game back and they never release it. Those are usually perfectionists, or people who want to fix everything about the game, and then, you know, they'd be like, oh, we'll release the game when it's ready, and it's going to take 10 years, but we're going to come out with it, and it's going to be badass. Notice how in video games that never pays off. Ever. Duke Nukem Forever. Shitty ass game. What other games took long to make? If they probably did I think it got the Kickstarter thing going, but if they probably came out with like the new Shenmue game, some people would buy it, but it wouldn't be nowhere near as good as it used to be. And it's like normally, because when you wait that long to put something out, not quality doesn't really suffer, but the mentality of the community changes, and then, you know, your game isn't as popular as it once was. You outlive your longevity, so to speak. You're killing your longevity of the game by waiting, you know, so you got to put it out eventually. That's why I said everything can't be perfect, but if they came out and, let's say, changed up, or if most companies came out and changed their business strategies, and let's say, you know what, games, you know, as a collective, games are getting more expensive to make. So if they lowered the quality standard of, let's say, graphics, you know, every graphics don't have to be photorealistic. Let's say, like, if everybody got together and they was like, you know what, we have a certain standard, let's make it here. And everything got dumbed down. Yeah, people would bitch and moan about that. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, the mentality of the people would change, because now you're lowering the expectation and raising the expectation for quality. And then that would become the standard. But companies, AAA development companies and publishers, they're not willing to whisk, can't talk today. Yeah, they're not willing to whisk that. Yeah, like, what are they making, fucking eggs? No, can't talk tonight. They're not willing to risk that. There we go. Let me talk like I actually went to school. But it's one of those things where they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. And that's why, as a player of video games, as a consumer, I guess, I don't feel sorry for them. I really don't. Because I expect it to be like this. If I'm paying money for something, I want to pay money for something I enjoy. And if they're bitching and making that they don't make enough money, because games make billions and billions of dollars every year. Video games makes more monies than movies. That's a fact. So if a game costs $30-something million to make, or $100 million, however much it costs, they're just like the movie industry at that point. They have to put money in to get money out. You know what I'm saying? If they make a badass game, then make a badass game. Raise that bar of creativity to improve the story and the content of whatever it is you do. You know what I'm saying? And then people are going to buy it. I mean, that's just, you know, that's just the way it is. You know, and just like the movie industry, stop trying to rely on sequels and give us, give us newer ideas, newer franchises, newer creative games. How about that? Change up the gaming industry. But no, they don't want to do that. You know, because they're fucking lazy. Just like Hollywood and the movie industry. They're the same way. Every movie that got to come out has to be a remake of something else. I think outside of superhero movies, and let's say probably sometimes a romantic comedy here or there, or a other, you know, those weird independent movies. It's the same way. That industry mirrors the gaming industry right now. Because just like Hollywood putting out re-releases or reboots or whatever, they're doing the same thing with video games. And you have those rare independent films that try to push an idea, be creative. Those are like the same indie developers on Steam that try to have substance behind their game. And since they don't, again, prime example, they don't have the money to raise the quality standard of the game, meaning like the graphics, the sound, and all of that stuff, because they don't have money. But they have a message, they're creative, they do things differently, and people respond to that. I mean, it's just, look at all those weird, quirky indie games that come out on Steam and on PC that people talk about for years and years and years, but, you know, they don't make millions and millions of dollars like, let's say, like Call of Duty. It's just, the industry has to change. It's not necessarily that story-driven games, oh, you know, they don't make money, so we think people would be more receptive to like a Netflix type service. No, that's bullshit. It's, like I said, Phil Spencer isn't wrong in what he's saying. It's factually right, but it's not something that's set in stone. They have to change, not us. We're just the people buying the games and playing them. You know what I'm saying? Ooh, $1 million machine. I've been buying things out of this machine. I have no idea what it really does, but I think this should be the last one, because it says do 5 out of 5, and each time I've, you know, been doing this, it's been giving me like weird, quirky items. Like I got a gun out of one of them, and some whiskey, apparently some stamina X, whatever that is. But like, you know, I don't mean, you know, to draw this out, you know, but that's why I just think he's wrong. You have to have story-driven games, and they have to do the same thing that they're doing now. You can't make, I'm not going to say you can't make episodic games, but I think it's just one of those things where every game can't be that way. Because then the consumer, like people like myself, are going to feel like you're just penny pinching them for anything, and then we're just going to stop buying your product altogether, and then you're really going to be losing money. So that's why I think they have to change up their mindset. I mean, yeah, you can have better consoles, like Xbox is coming out with the Xbox Scorpio and whatever. You can have better consoles, but at the end of the day, you don't have to increase the graphics to be all up. They just do that because that's what they think the people want. And in some ways, like I said, they're not wrong, but you set that standard, not the consumer. If, let's say, like, if they came out with a game, let's say, dumbed down the graphics a little bit, yeah, they may not make as much money as the next guy, but they may make more money in the long run. Like, if their game is truly great, if it has a great in-depth story that they just don't skip out on nothing, the story is just perfect, you know, whatever it is, that game is going to sell by word of mouth. I mean, because it's just like movies that break into the industry with content and ideas that nobody never heard of. Take, let's say, prime example, again, with Hollywood, Guardians of the Galaxy. You know, why not reference it since they got a movie coming out within the next couple days or so? Dude, why are you running up on me? I'll mess you up. But prime example, when the first one came out, they didn't know if that movie was going to make money. Marvel was like, look, we're putting out characters that nobody's never heard of. And, you know, they're in the same boat. Before Marvel came out and started making superhero movies, right? And I'm just talking about them so much because that's, you know, again, that's something else I'm into. That's something else I know. So that's why I'm referencing this, but the concept still applies. Back before Marvel came out, they was like, well, we got to put out the popular superheroes, because if we put out somebody else, nobody will know who you're talking about. Nobody's going to see it because they don't know who these characters are. You know, same thing like an indie developer game coming out with a game or coming out with a new franchise video game. It doesn't have that brand legacy. It doesn't have that franchise appeal, so nobody's going to buy it. Again, bullshit, because look at how much money that made. That came out, and I'm not saying that broke any kind of like super duper records, but that sold way more than what they thought it was going to because of how decent the movie was. People liked it. They were receptive to it. And again, it spread by word of mouth. You know what I'm saying? But video games could do the same thing. Like, I don't know how much Horizon Zero Dawn sold, but that came out completely brand new franchise, so to speak, I guess you could call it. It didn't change the wheel as far as open world games go. But again, it goes within my, you know, what I was saying before about taking somebody else's idea and putting your own little spin on it. And they did it right. I mean, the game sold. I mean, I don't know how much it sold. Like I said, I'm not somebody who look at numbers, but the reception for that game was done very well. You know, it came out, people talked about it, they praised how good the game was graphically and all that stuff. And this is coming from a developer who only made FPS games. You know, they only made what was it, Killzone? You know, they never even made open world games before. So for them to make a game that's, you know, well received and well praised, that's a good thing. So that's why I said it's the standard of the industry that has to change. It's not story-driven games. If you want story-driven games to make more money, make a better product. And I know I'm repeating myself at this point, but